guys try to hash out the translatable skills, and it's going to be a super exciting episode. So we're going to record that coming up this weekend. It should be out to you guys by next Monday, I guess, or so. Not going to put that pressure on Lance for.
Yeah, right. Yeah, let's get that going. Nah, he can get out. He can
Monday by 12 o'clock.
Yeah, by 12 o'clock sharp. There we go. Or else.
Well, I got a lot of good stuff for you guys to talk about tonight. I'm going to put these guys in the spot with some random questions I put together. After we did a supplemental podcast yesterday, and after doing that podcast, I kind of was still in that mode of doing the supplemental questions. So I was trying to break of that because I realized there's just a bunch of core stuff that we could probably repeat for the next 90 podcasts worth. And if we didn't push it into your brains well enough, we'll make sure it gets in there. So I'm going to try to break that mold a little bit. But first, before we get into that, I do want to do with the Cannon Minion follow-up for the guys who have been able to play since the patch came out. Unfortunately, it's not me because I work I work Thursday to Saturday and Wednesday to Saturday. So every time a patch comes out, I don't get to play on it until that following week. But so guys, Cannon Minion, the changes and whatnot. Have we seen any change? Have we seen any changes? Have we seen pass and jungling change? Have we seen anything, at all because of that? Snowball-y maybe.
I love the Cannon Minion change personally. As a top laner, when I'm winning harder. And with the Ignite buff, I have found a way to work Ignite back into the game a little bit. And TP doesn't guarantee that you just stay even anymore if you can time that kill on a siege wave. So I think there's like a layer of strategy there for top laners, in this 1v1, probably mid lane too. I can't speak to bot lane, but... that's been my experience.
Personally, I have no... If you miss a Cannon Minion, that feels real bad. It feels like you're missing the whole wave, basically, because we're so much. I personally changed my playstyle if I'm ahead to try and really play aggressively around the Cannon Minion to try and zone them off, especially it's worth so much more gold now that it actually has an impactful impact on the lane if you can force them off of it. So personally, I just changed how I played around it, but...
As far as jungle goes, I don't think it affects too much. It feels good as a jungler if you get to tax a cannon wave. It feels bad for your laner. So, yeah. But I think those guys hit the nail on the head there.
A couple junglers have taxed me. They'll get the kill and then they'll also take the cannon. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm not ahead.
Exactly.
It's all good. We're gonna carry.
It was a Kha'Zix, I didn't mind, but somebody else like Sejuani better not steal my cannon.
Need those 4 or 5 minute ninja tabby though, so you can run around. It wouldn't be unkillable. Except Sejuani kind of sucks now though.
And ninja tabby got nerfed.
Yeah, so hopefully it's not Sedge taking it or else.
It got nerfed for
It's not as good against physical damage abilities.
They're still good though. They're still good by all means.
It's a third less effective against physical damage abilities.
Yeah, but I'm saying early game it's worse, but the extra 2% off auto attacks is probably better for tanks late game.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it's negatively affected Lucian in particular because of his double hit passive.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I just think that
obviously you're going to have 10 less armor, so that's going to affect a lot more early. But if you're Malphite, that 10 armor is not going to matter that much. An extra 2% less you're taking from a Twitch's autos or something like that is going to be more impactful.
Yeah, I actually stopped building them.
Tabby altogether.
I build Sork shoes on Garen now for the R damage and stuff.
I still think they're good on I play I've been playing a lot of Warwick the last couple of days and Ninja Tabby if mercs aren't relevant in the game then I build tabbies in there. They seem to be fine honestly. Still tanking a lot of those auto attacks.
Man, see, I knew I should have the stat ready. There was something you needed so much armor for it to be as effective as it previously was. And I can't remember the stat off the top of my head. Now, I didn't even think we'd be talking about the Ninja Tabby, to be honest with you, so I didn't even look it up.
I haven't built... I mean, I would rarely build Ninja Tabby mid lane anyway. If I was going to need armor, I would just get a Seekers. But I have not been tempted at all to build it.
They're certainly not bad. We'll have to say that, even though they got, quote, nerfed, right?
I would still pick it up, and to Jack's top lane, Nocturne, jungle, that's realistic, right? Because Nocturne's gotten a bunch of buffs lately. And then, then they have a decent AD bot lane. 3 auto attackers. You still want Ninja Tabby. That's probably better than before, actually. But it doesn't really make sense just to get it against all physical games.
Well, I think they hit they accomplish what they set out to do and make it so that bottom laners aren't picking up Tabby as often as it was, and that's really where it was becoming a problem. I guess if you're rolling into someone like Gnar or whatever top lane, but you're still building it into those. So when it's reducing the when you're not getting so much armor, what is it? I think it's like 120. Shit. See, I'm trying to pull stats out my ass and I can't fucking talk right today. But anyways, I think they accomplished what they set out to do by nerfing Tabby in the right direction, by removing armor and adding the passive on there. That does more the more armor you have, essentially.
Yeah, it's not just a catch-all now that anyone can build and not get punished for sure.
But yeah. So I was going to ask you, do you feel that, so for real, you said that it changes, the cannon minions are changing the way you play this game, or at least changing your mindset. Do you feel that's more so because the cannons are worth more? Do you think that if you were missing the cannons or playing like you previously were, let's say you got 70% of the cannons that came your way, that you would actually be at a disadvantage?
That's high for me. I get like 25% of cannons.
Do you really? You
No,
play more Syndra.
I think it's just more pronounced, the difference. So because there's a bigger discrepancy between all of the minions, you just play, at least for me, I just play like more aggressively around it. If I'm ahead, if I'm behind, I just pray that I can get it. But I don't know, like beforehand, it's a hard question because I knew it was worth more, but they made it worth. So I don't know exactly if I don't know. I might have played more aggressively around the cannons beforehand, but then they're just getting the money back from the casters anyway, so it's not as big of a punish. But now it's a really more pronounced punish if you can force them up, especially past like the 15-minute mark when the cannons are worth like 87.
Right. I think it might be too much though, because 3 range minions are worth less than half a cannon later on in the game, and that it doesn't feel good to even take any minion besides the cannon at some point. Like you just take the cannon, leave the wave, and walk on, because you're making more gold doing that than you are taking the whole goddamn wave anyway. Well, you know what I mean. But
I personally, sorry, you go ahead, Beaver.
I was just gonna say that I think Todd made a great point 5 minutes ago, saying that it's adding a lot more skill to the lane. So if you are able to get a lead, then it truly is now punishing if you zone someone off of a cannon wave. And I think that just adds a lot more skill when you're talking about high-level players, right? Especially in melee versus melee matchups, it can be you can start to get really far behind if you're not able to get the cannons.
Yeah, I mean, mid lane, it's a lot harder to zone off of a cannon minion because most people are ranged and the lane's not very long. So generally, they'll be able to just walk up and use an ability and get it. So I think it probably is more impactful top than mid because it's just harder to zone off of the wave.
Mm-hmm.
I think that... Sorry, I lost my thought.
Sorry, it's that time of day. It's Monday, man. I feel you. I sat down to do the podcast. I'm like, I'm just mad. My head's just not there.
You bought me just enough time to remember, Adam.
I'm here for.
What a guy.
I think that because the siege minion is worth so much gold now, I kind of wish it wasn't displayed so plainly with the other CS score. I kind of wish there was like an additional stat now that showed like how many cannons you've actually, because there's a big difference between having a CS score of 50 with no cannons or 40 with all of the cannons. You know what I mean?
Kind of feel like we need that. We need to build out
like
stats, right? Like being able to see how many melees you're taking, how many range.
I feel like that's a
taking,
post-game kind of thing, though.
Well, or they
can too much info for the main game.
Not really. They can just do what they did with the jungle camps, where they made all of them worth 4. They can just make a cannon minion worth like 3 or something like that.
I mean, it could be right next to your CS, and it could just be a different color or something, and that's just the cannon score. Because they added the ward score to where your trinket icon is on the tab menu now. So I think they could add like a cannon score.
I think they'd be more likely to make the cannon just count more, like they did with the jungle camps, where they made all uniform.
We could get more detailed stats by pressing tab, right? If you've ever played Heroes, you'll notice there's a fuckload of detailed stats that are available to you right when you press the tab button. Even I know I was talking about the death stats, but it goes so far as to showing you each ability you hit and how long they were hitting you and all that shit. Like that shit's available and it should be being made. I could even see it where you click on the score in the top right corner, then it drops down and it breaks down what each type of minion you're taking and how much of those you're taking. You can switch it between jungle and stuff. It's a lot of extra information that probably most people won't use, but it could be super useful to people in higher elos or people who are really looking to min-max.
Well, I think post-game screen, doesn't it show you how many jungle camps you took in your own and how many jungle camps you took in the enemy's jungle?
It does, yeah.
Right.
So They
I was
definitely probably have the capability of doing
I was
that.
just gonna say, so one thing that's pretty obvious in the post game is how much gold every character, like the gold breakdown across your team. Do you guys think if that was in your tab screen when you're playing the game, it would make a difference? Or do you think it's
Yeah,
worth adding?
I
Yeah, I
think
think
it
people
would
would
make a
forfeit a
difference.
lot more.
I think it would be more than just that. I think if you could see how much gold each player on your team is, you would know like who's actually the strongest.
I
Isn't that just dumbing down the game a little bit though? Where you should be able to infer how off these items how much CS they have, how much stronger they are than they are.
I agree with that. I felt the same way when they added the jungle timers. But, I guess if that's the direction they're going to go, they might as well go all out.
What do you think, Adam?
I was gonna say, well, we had some arguments about the jungle timers on this podcast years ago when those first came in. Some pretty heated ones between people who thought they were good, thought they were bad, and I just, I'm coming here. I'm saying, yeah, they can drop it down. They do this. I just think at a point there's just too much information, and it doesn't become useful for the majority of the players that are playing this game, and it's just there to appease the 1%. And I would lump us into the 1%, the players who are really trying to dissect and play this game at the higher levels. And yeah, it'd be fantastic. Yes, I would love that kind of stuff, but I don't think it's something that needs to be added right now, and probably will never be added, because even if I get it and I use it, the other players aren't going to use it. So I think that's probably how Riot is ever going to respond.
You don't think more than just the 1% would use the gold count?
No, I think they would use it for what Vrail said. I think more people would forfeit.
Mm-hmm.
I've won my fair share of games where I go back and look at post-game stats, and I'm like, holy shit, we were down 10k gold when we won that team fight, and I thought we were more even than we were.
Yeah, it could be a negative impact for sure.
I agree with that.
So, well, speaking of playing this game and learning to get better at it, I have a question that I want to pose to each and every one of you, and I'll answer it as well. I wanted to know what your guys' biggest hurdle that you had to overcome to play your lane or champion. You can either pick your lane, your champion, or the jungle, since Beaver doesn't really have a lane. To play it to the best of your ability. As you were learning this game, as you're playing it, was there a hurdle that you guys can think of that you had to really try to overcome? And if there was, do you know how you overcame it? I'm using this as a way to try to help players out there who may be at that point in their gameplay where they're having a hard time understanding something. And perhaps if you guys can answer what hurdle you overcame, they can use that to answer their own. And if I need to start, I can.
I can start if you guys want to think about it for a minute.
Yeah.
So when I was in Bronze 2, when I got placed there, I was playing mostly jungle, Vi and Nunu. It doesn't really matter what champion I was playing. I kept running into, I'd win a game, I'd lose a game, I'd win a game, I'd lose a game, and it was on and off. So I started watching some videos trying to get better. And I was thinking, what's my biggest hurdle? And then I suddenly realized that I was sort of treating the enemy player as like a sort of an NPC, that they're always going to do the same thing every game, the enemy jungler. And I was always afraid to leave my jungle and cross into their jungle. And I think this is a big factor that a lot of players don't do. They're scared to use the information that they have right in front of them. And if the information is that the enemy jungler is on the opposite side of the map from you, either from a ward or from their ganking bot lane and your top side, then you can use that information and safely go into the enemy jungle and take some camps, put some wards down. That sort of thing. I was like, no, I don't want to go there because I can get collapsed on. But, just using the information that I have on the mini map for me was the biggest realization that I came to as a jungler. And it started to spike my win rates like crazy.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's something that we try to preach to a lot of people all the time, where we tell them, use the information you're given. Beaver, I wish you were here yesterday because we talked a little bit about counter jungling, doing that supplemental show. Speaking of, that'll be out in a few weeks, guys, for you, where we talk about counter jungling, and I think Sean had mentioned something to that case, that every piece, everything that happens is a piece of information that you can use to basically run a flowchart down of where you should be and why, yes or no, if you should be counter jungling, for example. And using that information can help you decide if you want to cross the river over to the enemy jungle. But Vrail, Moon, either of you?
I think, the journey from like low elo to high elo is such a long one, and there's so many steps along the way that's really hard to pinpoint down like this one particular thing. is what got me from like bronze to diamond.
And that's not exactly
So
that's not necessarily what I'm asking either. It's just like if there's a big hurdle that you saw that maybe pushed you. I'm not, maybe just pushed you to silver.
yeah, yeah, I would. The biggest thing for me was the mentality thing, where I tried to learn from all my games rather than just playing the game to play. So it was more a mental thing than a mechanical thing, or even like game knowledge thing. So I like to this point, I don't think I'm like a mechanical mastermind of any stretch of the imagination. So it was more just mentally going in with the idea of I wanted to learn rather than just play the game, which was my biggest hurdle, I'd say, to climb me.
I think the problem I had was stomaching being at a disadvantage was really difficult for me. I would always tilt when I was down gold or down kills. Like maybe I would, play really well or thought that I played really well, and I would lose the fight and I would be down, down to death now on some gold. And I would, it'd kind of get in my head basically, and I just wouldn't play as well. And it would happen most often in counter picks, where I felt like the only way to deal with the counter pick is just outplay the counter pick, and then now you don't have to deal with it anymore because you're stronger. But really, the right answer is to just, it's not a solo game, it's a team game, and you don't have to be the one to carry it every match. And when you get into a disadvantageous position, you just have to allow the rest of your team that is strong to get into a position where they can help you. And it's basically patience is what it comes down to.
I like this because it's like a reoccurring theme between all of us, because my answer is and always has been I had to get over myself. I had to get over my own ego for playing this game. I've been ribbed 100 times. I got a hole in my desk. I can see it, right through here. I've broken my fair share of mice and keyboards over the years, and I think the point that I finally got over myself and learned that I need to worry about me and only me. And if the people on my team pick like Kazakh's top lane and Master Yi jungle, and I have a brand support, I have now just worrying about how I play and what my win condition is, so that I can help my team win, rather than worried about, oh, is this Kazakh's top gonna feed? Oh my God, that's not meta, that type of thing. Like, this is the moment that I just said I'm gonna play to the best of my ability and worry about me, mute everybody else. It's the point that I saw that biggest hurdle and skyrocketed off to the top.
You guys are so wholesome.
We try to be. I mean, what do you want me to say? Man, I went and practiced CS for 100 hours, and suddenly I'm way better at this game. Well, you could CS like a god, but if you don't use that gold to do anything, it's all worthless.
I mean, just because I said that was my biggest hurdle doesn't mean that I still don't struggle with it from time to time, Like, if I'm losing and I feel like, like sometimes when we're playing fives, I'll be, like, really demanding of ganks. Damn it, like, just let me get fed and just let me carry. Like, I want to be the carry, but... You don't always have to be.
It's because you often get the special treatment, like the 3 ganks, the return gank on the teleport, and then the double dive to make them go 0-6. That's the special beaver treatment right there, dude.
I mean, the amount of people kind of along the I want to be the one that carry, the amount of people who say, like, once you get past a certain threshold of elo, who say 1v1 me, oh my gosh, you're just getting carried. The number of people who actually say that go down so much. Like, I don't think I've heard that in a plat or diamond game all year. No, and I feel like if I'm on my alternate account, somebody will get 2v1, they'll be like, oh, you're such a bitch, why don't you 1v1 me? I'm like, well, that's not how the game's played, so stop complaining.
Yeah, that's the team game thing Adam or one of you guys was saying.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very important to realize that it's 5v5, not 1v5 or 1v9 in some cases.
Although it might feel like it's 1v9 sometimes.
And some days it is. I thought my headset died there for a second. You all still there, right?
Yeah, we're just awkward and quiet.
No, it wasn't that.
We're also all wired in,
No, it wasn't that. Like, I know that was awkward there for a moment, but last night I was actually legitimately having a problem with these Bluetooth headphones where they would drop and then they come back. Like, I'm playing PUBG and I'm like, sneaking up with somebody and I can't hear anything. I'm like, oh fuck! I legitimately can't play this game because I can't hear anything. But all right, we're good. So I got more questions and I'm gonna keep tossing these out. I knew Vrail was gonna be here and I wanted to make him get put on the spot tonight.
Awesome. Let's go.
All right. So something that I've noticed by watching replays in a lot of low elo games is people love to play assassins, right? Or they like to play LeBlancs and whatnot, but they never know have any idea how to play against them. They think they're playing against Ice if they're playing against another mage. And I wanted your opinion about the best way for any player going into assassin to play into that assassin? What is their, what do they need to look for? What do they need to do? What is the number one rule when playing into an assassin?
Don't take greedy summoners, so don't go ignite into an assassin, or TP. Take like barrier or exhaust, and then you have to build like that. The two main roles I would say: take a defensive summoner and build defensive early, and play. You can play aggressive like the first 2 levels, but then you have to play defensive until you team fight. So if I were to say 3 things: take defensive summoners, build defensive, play defensive. I'm assuming you're playing a mage into someone who's going to have the ability to kill you level 6. That'd be my 3 main ones.
So would you also say that probably that? Oh, I hear a baby crying. I have to let you go and get the baby. I would say that not letting them snowball or even get in the position to snowball is so much more important than any other matchup, because if you go a full trade and you both walk out at 50%, that assassin actually wins that trade because that assassin is more likely to pop you.
Yeah, I mean, the window for a mage to win an assassin, in general, this is not the case for all matchups, but if you're like against the Zed, the window to win the lane as a mage, like hard win the lane, is before level 3, when he doesn't have his full complement of abilities and you can really punish him early. And it's the same with like, who's another assassin? Like Talon before he has his full comp. Well, I guess no, that'd be level 2 for Talon. But like level 1, you have to try and win. You have to be aware of when they power spike, and then you just have to play around it. Because as a mage, it's a lot harder to outplay an assassin as a mage than it is for an assassin to outplay you. So you just have to be aware of that.
Yeah, I think you made a great point at the beginning, is understanding what your opponent's win condition is. And Adam, you alluded to it. Mm-hmm. They're just trying to kill you and build a lead and snowball the game, because at the end of the day, most assassins are bad come the late game. And the same thing goes out of the jungle, kind of stealing the question from you here. If you're playing into like the likes of Yi, Evelyn, stuff like that, you really got to make sure that if you're just a bruiser or a tank, that you keep their jungle warded, make sure your laners are safe, and don't feed their asses off, because if they get too fed, then it's going to be hard to stop them. But if you're even, then you can take the game a little bit later and then take advantage of the fact that they're going to have a worse team comp than you. And this happened the other day. Just a quick example. I played into a Kha'Zix as Warwick, and the enemy team also had a Talon mid, so they ended up being all AD. And I knew that all we had to do was take it late game, and then eventually our Varus, who ended up being 2-7 at the beginning, he got the item power spikes, and then we won the game because they couldn't snowball out of control enough to steal it from us. So it's just understanding win conditions, and then like Varel was saying, play defensively, take it later, and you can win that way.
I also like the idea of setting up your team for success against an assassin, in the sense that instead of warding to look for the enemy jungler as a mid laner, warding down the river a little bit further. Granted, you're looking for the jungler as well, but also trying to give information to your team as if the assassin is able to push out and roam better than you are. We're assuming that's a scenario that, now we know the assassin is walking mid lane because you're walking bot lane because they've walked over this ward that you've conveniently placed out in one of those little small brushes. Instead of warding your side lanes, I think Varela said that episodes ago, don't ward the side bushes in mid lane, ward outside of it, right? Give yourself more opportunity to play against the enemy jungler and play against the enemy mid laner as well. Also warding, I saw Beaver was about to say something, but warding your lane, if you're playing into somebody who roams a whole fuckload like an assassin, is super, super, super important as a mid laner. Putting a ward, you can put it right hell, you can put it right smack dab in the mid lane if you want to. There's actually a spot over on the side, but it's hard to say it over, voice exactly where that spot is, but just toss one of your wards in the mid lane so you can see when that mid laner is coming back. If you forced him back, see if that mid laner is walking out after you walked away, etc.
Yeah, that's not actually something I do. I always try and ward to the side of the, either in the entrances to the jungle or in the little pixel. I think it's a pixel brush is what it's called, the one in the middle of the river. I think those are the best ones for mid lane.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's a ping ward that you put in there, if the enemy assassin or mid lane roamer has to stop in that bush to take out the ping ward, then it's been successful because you've stopped the roam.
Yes, exactly.
And unfortunately, top lane doesn't get to see that many assassins. Your bruisers, fighters.
Yeah, we see Riven. That's pretty much it.
Is there anything you can
Maybe-
do against a Fiora, Riven, Darius that would, be comparable to playing against an assassin?
Um,
I guess
I
Garen
mean,
falls in that too.
I mean, sort of. The biggest thing when you're playing against a top laner like that, who is like an execute with a lot of kill pressure, it's just not engaging into a fight with your escape on cooldown. It's pretty much what playing defensively is in top lane. Most bruisers have some kind of disengage, so you save that till they try to force the fight, and then you hope you can get out.
Awesome. All right. Beaver, I'm wrapping back around for you. I've actually got a question for each and every single one of you. This is great. I didn't even realize I did it, but I fucking did it in this document. It makes me even happier. Beaver, cutting jungling camps. We've talked about this previously, not necessarily with you on this show, but let's talk about cutting jungle camps and why and all that good stuff.
Cutting in the sense that you just don't do it, or you're just skipping it for one rotation?
No, kiting them as if you
Oh,
are...
kiting.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
kiting, yeah.
Cutting.
But you should always be kiting jungle camps. Okay, so essentially, it doesn't seem like it, but you can save a lot of health by like attacking the camp, backing up a step, and then attacking the camp again. It's called kiting, and you can do it with melees as well as ranged champions. It's obviously more effective on ranged champions, but if you go into a custom right now, level 1, try to do the blue buff kiting it, or by just standing there and hitting it, then it's going to be a lot more effective if you're kiting. But there is one issue with kiting, is it's a little bit harder to F1 through F5 to look at your lanes while you're doing so. So you have to sort of balance it out. And some camps it's better to do on, because the buffs and the Gromp hit so hard, kiting them is really worth it. On the AoE camps, it doesn't make as big of a difference, like the Krugs and the Raptors. But on the other...
Sorry, but like Krugs and whatnot, it can make sense. I don't want to call it kite, but corral.
Of
corral
course.
wolves and corral, which you can consider kiting, right? Because you attack them and force them to walk toward you or whatever it is.
Another amazing thing you can do with kiting is you can get the camp to come to where you're trying to go. So, for example, if I've just done blue buff on level 2, I swing up to my wolves, and I want to do those before heading topside to my red. I will like auto attack move, so basically like orb walk on melee or ranged until the blue buff is just outside of the little wall there. The wolf, sorry. So that as soon as I'm finished killing the last wolf, I'm already like 5-6 teamos towards my next camp, which saves a second or two, and in the early game that could be everything. Same thing with red buff. Like when you take red buff, you can pull it into the bush until you sort of have to figure out the leash zones, because if you go too far, then the buff will kite back, and that's terrible when it starts regenerating health. But if you can get it on that threshold, keep it there, finish it off, you can really save a lot of time just with those extra few steps getting towards where you need to be right away.
And when you're kiting it, are you kind of cutting them in this? Let's talk blue buff, red side blue buff. Are you cutting that one kind of like in a circle? You're cutting it through the bush and around and down toward the river and then back, right? I
do that early because it takes longer to kill the camp, right? So if you're doing it on an Evelyn, you want to be kiting around in circles, so because it's going to take you 15 seconds to finish the camp. But as you get more levels, the camps are gonna be quicker. So then what you can do is you can kite them to where you want to be and then finish them off a little faster. But yeah, walking in the circle is a good way. So you have to figure out what your champion's damage is. So like you said, if you pull it towards blue buff, but then you ultimately pull it towards dragon, the blue buff, and you ultimately want to go over to wolves, if you kill the camp while you're near the dragon, you've wasted a bunch of time, because now you have to walk all the way over to wolves, and it's going to take you twice as long. So try to finish the camp when you're at the if you're kiting in a circle, try to finish the camp on the edge of the circle that's closest to your next possible destination. So you got to sort of plan out what you're going to do ahead. So I know as soon as I'm finished this blue, I'm playing, all my lanes are going to be playing safe, and I'm not going to really want to gank them. I'm going to do a full clear, so I'm going to walk over to this Gromp and do that instead of going to my wolf. So I'm going to do a full clear. These kind of things you have to decide while you're going, and then kite accordingly.
Awesome. Perfect. You answered a listener question with that one too, by the way.
Great.
Congratulations. I guess the next piece here, as I said, I'm going around the table here. It's for top lane. I don't know if you watched any LCS this weekend, but Singe got picked as a counter pick to Ornn, right? So I'm not necessarily saying Singe is going to become more popular, but that does lead to the question: is how am I playing against somebody who's proxying a wave? I know I've seen you do it on Garen.
Yeah, so Singed is kind of an interesting character statistically. Like on websites like LOL Analytics, for example, he's rated fairly high as lane. He's gotten a lot of weird buffs over the last couple of years. He's still just not a popular character, but yeah, that's his big strength, proxying. And what it does is it creates more pressure. Like the thing about top lane is when you roam, before you roam, you typically want to shove the wave. And when Singe proxies, what he's doing is he's creating an even bigger window for him to run around the map. And the most successful Singe players tend to proxy really deep, and then they'll assist either mid or bot lane in like an insane dive because he can tank the turret and he can be there while without giving up any of this pressure topside. Top can't punish Singed for not being in lane because he has no minion wave to do it with. So the only answer really is to if you can't safely go behind that first turret, you kind of hug that, the bush closest to their tower, and you're trying to do your own clear as soon as you can. And then to match his roam potential between waves, I like to maybe like roam to mid lane or maybe roam into the enemy jungle to see if I can like spot the jungler and maybe get a cheese kill on the jungler, or maybe I can roam mid and I can blow my summoners there. Basically, he's taking himself out of top lane, so you can't get a hit on Singed, and he's trying to help his other lanes, so you basically just have to match that. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Is there any point in time where you're trying to team up with the jungler to take him down, like in your jungle?
You can give up a wave of CS to pinch Singed with your jungler, and it works best, if you kind of call out the gank while he's on the same side as Singed, when he's on top side, and you kind of call it out right before the wave gets there. You kind of need wards to do that. Buy a control ward and put some defensive yellow wards down.
Perfect. Well, hopefully that answers somebody else's question out there. I know proxying is very frustrating to play against, and it can go to what we talked about earlier, trying to get over that hurdle. Because if you end up playing into a Singe, you can be frustrated with yourself because you feel like you can't do anything or you don't know what to do, and it's a very good test of your will to play into somebody that's proxying very well.
The only thing I would really add to that is the worst thing you can do is chase the proxy or too far and give up too much farm, because you'll get tower damage, which is what they want, and you'll fall behind in XP and gold. So, worst case scenario, farm the wave, go even, and then maybe mid game you can group.
Perfect. All right. Hopefully this question leads into a bit of a discussion and potentially leads us out of the podcast. I want to talk about post-9 warding and specifically split pushing, because we've talked in the past about how when you're split pushing, you should only split push if you can absolutely kill whoever they send to take you out, right? Like if you're split pushing just for the sake of it because you think you need to, you're not doing it correctly. But in order to do that, you always need to be prepared, and to be prepared you need to have wards. So picking up the correct ward or using the wards or swapping to the wards throughout the game is something that I want to talk to specifically, because there's different mentalities you can look at about kind of wards kind of trinket you should have, and I'm going to leave that one kind of an open discussion before I interject here.
I'll start.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll start off just because post 9 is really interesting, because that's when the sweeping lens becomes available. I think they said they might change that soon, but as of right now,
it's Oracle's lens, but yeah.
Or yeah, Oracle's lens. Yeah, sorry. The one that moves with you. The one that moves with you as you walk around.
Right.
So you obviously you don't have yellow wards. So I like to pick up a control ward, and I like to put that in a key position, probably where I think I'm going to get ganked from. And then I try to clear out the vision with the Oracle lens. And then what I'm doing is I'm clearing the wave as quickly as I can. And because I don't have vision, but I know they don't, I'm instead hiding in the fog of war, like in the bushes between waves, hoping that I can catch somebody extending too far. Kind of sitting on that pink, using that for map control.
Do you not find yourself picking up the blue ward to try to use that to get vision anywhere? Or even,
Pretty much.
I guess do you even stick? You could. I mean, there's a case there. That's why I said there's a case for everything, right? Like you could pick up the blue ward because you potentially, look for somebody coming because you get that feeling, oh, someone's on the way. You can keep the yellow ward because you want to drop a couple of those while you're split pushing. But that red ward really should be the catch-all. And the sweeping lens is phenomenal for just helping deny vision and know that you have pretty much a clear path, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I prefer since I kind of have to play around bushes to get kills, but it fits my play style.
Oracle Lens is like the best of all the possible of all three of them. I think is just so gold efficient in what it does. Covers such a huge area. As a jungler, I typically hang on to my trinkets until level 9, just to help out with vision across the map, get some deep wards down, and then as soon as I'm able to upgrade into the Oracle's Lens, I do so because just for securing objectives and suffocating the enemy team when you have a lead, it's really good. And then at that point I like to hold. I usually put down an earlier defensive pink ward to protect my jungle, and then at level 9 I'll pick up a second one if that hasn't gone and use that for objectives. That's my typical strategy in most standard games.
Yeah, I think split pushers generally don't get the blue ward. I think it would be the AD or the mid laner dropping the blue ward from like mid lane to the lane that is split pushing because you can put it down from so far away. So I think generally they would be the ones to cover the split pusher with blue wards.
God, see, even the mid laner, I love having the sweeping lens or Oracle's Lens on the mid laner because there's so many times where you're roaming around and being able to deny vision and stand in a bush, right? Like I can walk through a bush and they now they don't know I'm there as I'm walking through, so I can sneak up on somebody is like an advantageous way to play the game.
But I mean, at that point, you should be grouping with your jungle and support, and I'm assuming they both already have it. And then you just don't have any wards to leave behind to cover your trail.
Right.
Yeah, you need at least 2 oracles, I think, on a team that's trying to push an advantage.
I think generally it'll be...
Sorry, you go ahead. I was just going to say it's really important on either team to have one blue Farsight orb, I think. And usually, like you said, it's the 80 carry or whatever because it's safe for them to put it down, but it's really important to scout out those huge objectives like Baron and Dragon. So you need at least one of those 2 oracles, maybe 3.
Yeah, that's where Josh. And that's where game sense. I'm sorry, I'll let Josh talk. Go ahead.
I just feel like it's normally the jungle and AD will have the jungle and support have oracle, the mid and AD have the blue ward, and then the top has whatever, which is kind of what we were getting at.
Yeah.
Right. Use it, and even using that blue ward properly can be a daunting task, really, because there could be a lot of scenarios where you just want to get an idea where somebody is for your team as the marksman, but you also have to have the game sense to know when they're going to be going for an objective so that you can have it available to, because like, those scenarios where they are on Baron and you need vision on Baron and you need to check Baron, the marksman is the person who is checking that. Because anybody else who goes out there is likely going to die if there's somebody there. And if you previously used that ward to like look for if your red buff is available, you wasted it, or if you look to see if they're walking in a random place that you knew they were already at, it's a waste of a long cooldown ability. So using your wards and using them properly is such a skill that needs to be learned. It needs to be learned and honed. That I don't think we've talked enough about using those properly and why you should be using those. And we've said pick up this, pick up that, but we never said why you should be using them and why you should be really focusing on that. I feel like it's an afterthought.
Yeah, I think just the value of the 75 gold spent on the pink wards is really underestimated. And I know Josh is going to laugh at me because we played a support game where I didn't buy a single pink ward. I see him smiling over there. It was terrible, but when I am playing like super competitively in a competitive mindset, I try to always have one on me, because even if you guys are losing by 10k gold, if you can muster up your team to stack a bush with a pink ward and you get face checked, suddenly it's a 5v4 if you get a free kill, and that can if you do that a couple times and the game can swing back in your favor. Another thing I noticed a lot is because I have the oracles, and then maybe no one can get down vision for me to go and steal Baron. So it's nice to have a pink, and even if you just toss over the wall to make that desperate play, sometimes that can be the difference between stealing the objective and winning the game versus just sitting there and losing just because you didn't spend 75 gold and had an item slot open.
Right. From my perspective, there's a lot more gold in the game than there used to be in Season 1, and the old classic wards used to cost 75 gold apiece. There were no free wards, and we would back and buy 2 or 3 of those at a time as top laners, on top of a pink ward, which used to be 100. So there's really no excuse not to have one. It's too cheap.
Especially mid game.
Yeah,
like
you should
early game, I understand if you can only afford one here and there, but mid game, like you're trying to go for these expensive items, you're gonna have a slot left and some gold.
This is the perfect transition into a question. Dr. Mick Bunglenuts writes, pro players late game won't buy a 6th item so they can hold on to a slot for control wards, but I'm scared to do that. What is your advice?
I say
this
don't.
question.
I
I
say
thought
We answered this.
Oh, you did? Damn it. It's not crossed out in the document, so
Do you want the
should
Spark
I
Notes version?
do it anyway, because I think it's like it's even if we already talked about it, it's probably fine to do it one more time.
Well, Todd wasn't there, so he should give us what he thinks.
I say hell no, don't do that shit because it's solo queue. And they're like, it's way too coordinated. Like, the reason why all the pros leave that slot open is because it's like, okay, we need 5 control wards at any time because then we can clear 5 bushes or, whatever it might be. Like, pro play is so much more coordinated, so much more higher level. Everybody else in your game is going to build a 6th item. And if you're the only person without a 6th item, you're going to be at a disadvantage. So I say hell no, don't do that.
Yeah, the only thing we said, like, you're totally right, and there's the unspoken rule in pro play where if everyone has control wards and is not buying the 6th item, then everyone does so. But then when everyone can afford to outright purchase a 6th item, they do so. And I think for solo queue, like, it doesn't matter that much. But if you're a support, definitely do this until you can like outright afford a 6th item, because usually it's like 60 minutes into a game.
Well, I think even if you are a support, I don't think a support 6 item is going to be impactful enough to not have the control wards. Because
Depends what the item is, right?
Depends what support.
Yeah,
and what
if you're
item.
like an enchanter support, maybe. If you're
an
a
enchanter Janna picking up a Mikhail's last item, then I could make or break a team fight. It's situational though, yeah.
I always feel like a support should always have pink wards, but
we're talking about warding and all that. What's funny is, coming from a marksman point of view, I will buy a ward between the levels of 5 and 12 or 13, maybe max. But once I hit that spot where I suddenly need to sit on those little extra items and those little step items actually mean a lot for me, I stop buying those control wards. It's kind of like I'll be sitting on 3 daggers and then suddenly I'll turn that into a hurricane. All right, well, I have a spot now for a control ward, so congratulations. You're just lucky that I upgraded when I did. But other than that, there's not really a lot of times as a marksman, for example, that you're picking up control wards. It's like a 4 roll only thing.
I think as far as warding goes, marksman, I give a pass for not warding as much as people, because if you're in a position to drop a control ward, you're probably in a position into an unchecked bush. You're probably in a position that you're going to get hit with a crowd control ability if there's anyone in there, and then instantly die. So I give marksman a pass, especially come later in the game. Your guy's job is not to be warding the map as much. I mean, still, if you can afford to pick up a knight like a pink, throw it down here and there, it's great, but it's not as imperative for you guys to do that.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I feel like they should still buy pink wards. That's a team thing. Everybody's
It is
gotta
a
be on
team.
the same
It
board.
is a team thing for sure. But I mean, you have to be careful too, right? Like, it's fine to use it to secure an objective, like secure vision when your whole team's with you. But if you're just like wandering into an unseen area to drop a ward for vision, and then all of a sudden you get caught out, that's how leads get snowballed.
Yeah, but when is a marksman? I'm thinking a marksman will buy it and then put it probably in a defensive area more so than.
Yeah, that's fine. Early game, I think it's great that they buy one and stick it in your own jungle in the tri-bush or something.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, if you have enough gold for it and you have an open spot, I don't see why you shouldn't buy it just because you're a marksman.
Okay, and the best early defensive jungle ward is, if you're scared of getting invaded, is in the bush behind your red buff, because very rarely do people actually check that bush, especially topside red buff. That's a really good place.
You mean the one like behind Baron Pit or Dragon, or the one?
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Bot side not so it's not as good. It's still good, but it'll get checked eventually because of dragon. But top side, no one is ever behind that pit. So if you're on, I guess, red side, and you drop a ward behind the Baron pit in that bush behind red buff, then it's going to stay there for a long time. And it's a nice, safe early defensive ward.
If you can manage to get a pink ward, I'm trying to think. I can't remember what side's what. If you're looking at your screen, it's on the right.
Great.
The red side.
What?
Red side's top side.
Okay, red side then. If you can get a ward behind their blue buff in that little pathway in between the towers, if you get a pink ward there, that one will stay there forever also.
Yeah, that one, and in the bush next to the red buff, like where the blast plant is.
I need a map. Gosh,
between say, so if you're going from Krugs to red buff on either side, there's a bush next to the red that's attached to that pit, and then there's a bush that's attached to the wall that goes in between the blast plant and the red buff. That bush is a great place for an offensive ward. So if you ever find yourself at the enemy red and drop one there, and it can give you, then you can see them pathing to their Krugs, and you're like, no, top laner look out or bot lane look out. It's a really good one.
I gotta remember to look at that one. Go ahead.
When I'm topside, if my tower is closest, whatever bush my tower is closest to is the bush that I like to put my pink ward in, and the bush that's further away is the bush that I like to put my yellow ward in. Reason that is just that when the pink is on your side of the lane, it's easier for you to defend, and it's easier for you to keep that side of the lane clear of enemy wards. Whereas, like, they can't clear the yellow ward, but if you had a pink up there, you wouldn't be able to defend it. Like, say their jungler comes, that ward's just gone.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to defend the pink ward in the river if you're top laner on blue sides of the bottom side of the map, because you have to like go around the wall to get to the bush to defend it.
Dude, I love ward battles. Like in the bottom lane, when people always ward the tri-bush, right? But there's like ward battles and shit that just happens there, and it's like you can use it as a bait bottom lane because your jungler is bottom side. So if they have a ward, a ward in there, you can drop your pink and force them to come over and try to fight you with it, and your jungler shows up. Like there's mind games you could use around wards.
Something about low elo supports just will die for wards in the early game. I've seen Nami's like fight to the death with auto attacks trying to protect that pink.
Funny thing, so I was playing ADC with a buddy of mine the other day. It was actually last night, and they had an enemy Twitch. I was playing Jhin, and he was playing Brand. So he just put a pink ward in like the lane bush, and we literally started fights 3 times with them trying to clear that ward, and we got double kills all 3 times just because they were like, "Oh shit, there's a pink ward there. We gotta get that thing. It's gonna cost us the game if we don't clear that." And then it cost them the game because they tried to clear that. So it's not always worth it to clear pinks.
I know it makes you twitch a little bit when they're in there, but you gotta remember it's okay. Sometimes it's okay. Sometimes you can't give up your position and give up those cannon minions just to get a couple extra gold.
Dude, the one episode we go in depth on wards and Dom isn't here.
Probably, no offense to Dom, I love you, but it might be for the best because we may have spent an extra 30 minutes talking about wards.
Probably.
Dom will just override what we're all saying. You correct all the things you're saying wrong. You put a word there, what?
He's going to listen to this episode, and on the next one, he's going to make all his corrections.
Yeah, dude, how have we not mentioned the yellow ward behind the dragon pit? How have we not mentioned it?
Yeah, by the black
best ward in the game, boys.
Yeah. We have mentioned that. We've mentioned every single one of these wards at least once at some point in time.
The Dom seal of approval.
Because he'll always tell you he loves the ward that gets the 3 lanes when you're walking through the jungle, and he loves the this or that. Go back and listen like 6 episodes ago, you'll hear.
He also just loves when his teammates actually ward.
Dude, I have played support most recently. I think I played it with Vrail, and I got to give it to any support player out there because it's really easy to forget to ward. So sometimes I'm just running around because I just feel like I'm Bard. I'm collecting charms. Oh, I probably should be warding while I'm this deep in the enemy jungle.
Bard that game. Your Bard's terrible.
I had a few beers in me that night as well, for what it's worth.
Okay, your drunk Bard's not great.
Probably still better than Vrel's misfortune. So
I was actually playing Kog'Maw that game. I did pretty well, I think.
You'll never see me even try to AD carry. I'm never even going to attempt it around you guys because I'll never hear the end of it. It'll get brought up every show.
I would be so shocked to see you on a ranged champion. I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah, I know, right? He just bitched the entire time. Why is it so fucking easy?
I'd love to see you play Quinn or something like that. Some disgusting lane bully.
Yeah, dude. One day, when I decide that I just have to be challenger, I'll switch.
Sounds good.
High aspirations right there.
He's not a masochist, all right? He doesn't hate himself yet. You would think he would have already by playing Garen all the time, but no, here we are, season 8, and still
Yeah, that's impressive.
Diamond
Garen has
5
some
Garen.
brutal matchups.
Still happy. Well, hey, I'm not Diamond 5 yet, actually. I'm in promos to D5. This season has been bad for Karen, dude.
I have to say I've jungled a lot of things from Sona to Orianna to Karthus, and Garen has one of the worst jungle clears I've ever had. It's like arguably worse than Braum's jungle clear. I used to do 29% attack speed jungle Braum, and it was fine. You could get away with it.
Yeah, my boy, attack speed Braum.
Yeah, you get
You ever
that
try-
sated Devourer Braum, and you just
Yes.
smacking people down. That was good times. But Garen,
Over
the
top of his
spin
shield,
does
too.
0 damage.
And that's pretty much how it is the whole game. Like that's what us Garens are dealing with right now. So Garen jungle buffs confirmed.
No,
No,
never.
sorry.
I want to
You'd have to
challenge
deal
you
like
to-
300% to monsters for it to be viable.
Let's do it.
Because you have to max the Q, don't you?
I prefer it because of, I mean, like
Move
even
speed, right?
in lane, it's important because of gap closing. And even if you were a jungler, you'd want it to gank. It's front loaded damage too. Like the burst would be so much better in a gank. So yeah.
Who has tried to jungle clear with Bard?
No, I
Is
haven't.
That's terrible. That's real. That's a tough one. Not an easy or healthy clear at all.
Who's got
Kai'D's
like
is
the
key
who's,
there.
who's got the best clear? Who's the best clear in the game?
True.
You're talking like
Graves,
before
Amelia?
you get one item?
Like
No.
like fastest first clear. Who's got the fastest first clear?
It doesn't have to be healthy. I
de-
think Nidalee is
it-
still up there right now, isn't she?
Italy, yeah, she's probably the best if you can actually do the mechanics. Yi is really good because he's got pretty nutty AoE. But you need AoE for it to be fast. But then coming into mid game, honestly, like Karthus, as soon as you get the, I'm
No,
not
don't
joking. You guys think it's
encourage
fun.
No, I know.
But as soon as
I'm
you,
in
as soon
this.
as you get the AP jungle item on Karthus, you can just like blow through the jungle so fast, and then you'll be sitting there at your top side waiting for the camps to respawn because you've cleared too quickly.
Yo, season 4, a Zingy Karthus jungle into General Odd One. I mean, come on, everybody remembers this.
Legendary stuff, but you usually have to back after 2 camps to buy the potion, the hunter's potion.
So it's pretty worthless.
Yeah, we
Brutal.
miss out on that one. But no, there's lots of good jungle killers. My favorite off-meta jungler that actually I'm fairly successful with is probably Akali. She's pretty fun to jungle.
That character's nasty. Please delete.
It's
It's really
terrible.
good.
I hate playing against Akali.
All right. I think we're going to edit there before we get into more off topic about fast and slow junglers and all that good stuff. Guys, you go out there, go play whatever jungler you want. Just don't do it in ranked and don't do it for the first time there either. Hell, you
And
can
don't
play
play
it.
Garen.
And don't play Garen
Play
Or-
2
or Bard.
battles and then take it to ranked.
or Bard.
That's a Josh.
Just try and jungle clear Bard without a leash. I'll be impressed if you can do it without backing after.
Go into the practice tool. I bet even with cheats it'd be difficult.
With cheats. Plug that game JD in and see what you can do, boys. All right, that's it, guys. That's the Trinity Force podcast. We will see you all next week. Peace.
Later.
Yeah.